ISO 9001 2015 revision, kita sekarang try to understand the clause one by one. We start from clause to 3. Okay, clause 1 to 3 actually is this clause mainly refer to requirement for the ISO standard. Mean you want to create a book for ISO, clause 1, clause 2, and clause 3 requirement for those to create the standard. ISO 9001-2015, the structure ISO 9001, number 1, the clause number 1 is actually referred to the scope of ISO 9001, the scope. Scope means what is the QMS requirement for this ISO 9001. Number 2 is the normative reference. In the ISO 9001, what is the application needs. And clause number 3 is the term and definitions for this ISO. So it is all refer for the books. When they create the book, they mainly to understand 9001, the QMS, what is the scope to work, and application. The requirements are for those who need to demonstrate ability to provide consistently products that meet customer and regulatory requirements. So scope will cover the priority to make sure when the company implement, they are able to provide consistent product that meet customer requirement and also legal and regulatory requirements. And also is to enhance customer certification and continue improvement. So once you have an ISO system you build in your factory, you will need to enhance the customer certification, and also you need to practice continual improvement because improvement never ends. So this scope is applied to all the company, application to all organizations, and is general, not specified. Any company can use. So the question here, when I ask you, scope number 1 related to who? Do you have answer? If not understand, you keep repeat to the slide just now I mentioned. Clause number 2 is the normative reference, mean the application of ISO 9001. What application? You're not allowed to do exclusion. What is exclusion? Previously, when you have a design, but you don't want to make a design to include in your certification, or you don't want to create any SOP, standard operating for your design and development group, you can do exclusion. Presently, all the new version start from year 2015, all the ISO application, you are not allowed to do exclusion. But you can exclude if you are not have any application on it. Mean if you don't have design, you can do exclusion because you don't have design activity, or you don't have equipment to do calibration, then you can exclude calibration. You do service, you don't have equipment, like the trainer, you don't do any equipment for calibration, then you can do exclusion. Applicability will depend on the size the management model, it adopts the range of the activities, the nature or risk and opportunity. So this application actually depend on the how big the company, and then the management level, how big the group of the management the users, and then the activity, how many types of activity you are implement, and there's a risk and opportunity need to be considered. So the application here is covered. Where a requirement can be applied, the organization cannot decide that is not applicable. Maksudnya, bila requirement dikendaki, mesti ada resign. Baru you boleh membuat produk tersebut. Jadi, you tak boleh buat exclusion. Kecuali, you tak ada requirement, you follow customer spec, follow customer drawing, then you can do exclusion because you refer, your design can exclude. Then you can refer to customer spec or customer drawing, etc. or contract review. Then when a requirement cannot be applied, the non-applicability cannot result in failures to achieve conformity of product and services, and hence customer certification. So it means the requirement cannot be applied, then also di mana kena ni tak boleh dipakai, tak boleh di implement. Jadi tanpa implementation ini dia tak akan menjadi satu kecacatan. Jadi contohnya calibration. Kalau trainer itu dia tak perlu calibration kan, orang buat training ataupun consultant dia train ISO. Dia tak perlu buat calibration. Jadi dia equipment dia tak pakai sebab dia tak ada pakai equipment. Jadi service jenis ini you boleh exclude clause 7.1.5 for calibration. So it can exclude because without calibration you don't have equipment how to calibrate, so you no need to calibrate. And if also your service still can be maintained to satisfy your customer. You understand what this means? So the application here means all your ISO clause you have implement unless it's meet the requirement above. Number 3 is the term and definitions. Terms, the book, when you refer to the ISO book, you have on the sentences you can see shall, S-H-A-L-L. When you see a term right down shall mean is a requirement, is a must, you must implement or you must have. So refer to shall. Here you can see a good example 4.1, a requirement. So the requirement said that you shall. Let's see what is the 4.1 on the shall. You see 4.1 on the clause ISO, you open the books, ISO standard books, page number 1, 4.1, understanding the organization and its context. The organization shall determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose, etc., etc. So when you see the organization shall determine internal, external issue, mean you must do the job. You must determine what is the issue happen on external and internal. So it's a requirement, you must do this. So when you read the sentences shall, mean you have to do. So you need to prove. the evidence on the ISO procedure. Okay, and number 2 is suit. Suit means is the document. You can say that justify, you no need to do, then you no need to meet the requirement. But so far for QMS, you don't have any source, you want document, right? You have shall and you have may, right? MAY is the sentences. MAY mean the example on the clause 4.4, okay? Clause 4.4, not 4.3, sorry. 4.3 on the last paragraph. Conformity to this international standard may only be claimed if the requirements determined as not being applicable do not affect the organization ability, etc., etc. So when they say the conformity to this international standard may only be claimed, so may mean you have a permission. You say, I don't have this process, so you no need to do. So the term may, you can justify, you don't do this one, it's not a problem, then you are allowed to not to choose, you no need to meet the requirement. Okay, and the other next is the can, CAN, can. Possibility or capability, for can. When you see the CAN on the sentences, can, example, we see on the clause 5.1.1, 5.1.2 customer focus, para number B, 512B, you can see the risk and opportunity that can affect conformity of products, etc., etc., etc. The risk and opportunity can affect mean possible, or if not possible, then you no need to do. So you can see that's the requirement. Okay, the definition on this. So the next actually PDCA is regarding the plan do check action. It means the plan do check action mean the just now we have reviewed through including awareness training as the PDCA. When you look at documented information, documented information is the document requirements. Mean you need to have documents. Either when you see the words maintain documented information, mean you need to have a procedures or work instruction or standard operating procedure SOP or work instruction WI, or you need to have some process flow. So you need to prove is the maintain documented information. You need to prove all this information, the procedures. When you read on the sentences, you show written documented information, means you need to have a form or records to prove you are compliant to the requirement. So the term written documented information means you need to prove you have a format or you have a records to show as a data requirement. Example, written documented information. Okay, you go to clause 4.4.2 para B. Written documented information to have confidence that the processes are being carried out as planned. It means that you need to show a record on your